I was standing on a public dock in Biloxi, Mississippi, watching a man in his 70s dump what looked like pink cottage cheese into the water. Within 90 seconds, the surface erupted. Red fish, speckled trout, even a few flounder came charging in from deeper water like they'd been called to dinner. He pulled out 6 keeper-sized fish in under an hour using nothing but a cane pole and cut mullet. Meanwhile, 3 younger guys, 50 feet down with live shrimp and modern rigs, hadn't had a single bite. That pink mixture cost him maybe 10 cents to make. And it's been working in the Gulf states since before most of us were born. If you're interested in seeing how these Depression-era methods still outperform expensive store-bought attractants, consider subscribing. That's exactly what this channel is about. Testing what actually works, not what gets marketed the hardest. The man's name was Carl Dupree, 82 years old, retired shrimper. He told me his father used to make this same mixture back in the 1930s when they couldn't afford real bait. They'd toss it off the docks in Mobile Bay, and within minutes the water would boil with feeding fish. Carl said it wasn't magic. It was just understanding what fish want and how scent moves through salt water. I asked him what was in it. He smiled and said it was so simple people wouldn't believe it worked. Pink salt, sugar, and one ingredient most folks throw away without thinking twice. I decided to test it myself. Same dock, same time of day. 2 setups, one using Carl's mixture, one using a commercial chum block I bought for $12 at the bait shop. I wanted to see if there was any real difference, or if this was just another old-timer story that sounded better than it performed. The water that morning was calm. Flat green surface with just enough current moving west to east. Temperature around 74 degrees. Visibility maybe 3 feet down. Perfect conditions to see how scent disperses and whether fish actually respond to it. I started with the commercial block, dropped it in a mesh bag tied to a piling. It began dissolving slowly, releasing that generic fishy smell you get from most mass-produced attractants. I waited. 15 minutes, 20, 30. A few small pinfish showed up, nothing else. The water stayed quiet. Then I mixed Carl's recipe, half a cup of rock salt, 2 tablespoons of sugar, and 4 ounces of strawberry jello powder, the cheapest kind you can buy at any grocery store. Mixed it all together in a plastic container until it looked like pink sand. That's it. Total cost maybe 8 cents if you're buying in bulk. I scooped a handful and tossed it into the water about 20 feet from the dock. It sank slowly, creating this soft pink cloud that spread out as it dropped. The contrast against the green water made it easy to track. Within seconds, I saw movement. Small baitfish darting toward it, then larger shadows underneath. 2 minutes later, a redfish rolled on the surface right where I'd thrown the mixture. Then another. Then a speckled trout hit so hard it splashed. I hadn't even put a line in the water yet. I baited a simple hook with a piece of cut mullet. No fancy rig, just a slip sinker and a circle hook. Dropped it near the pink cloud. The line went tight before it even hit bottom. First fish on, a solid redfish, maybe 18 inches. Fought clean, came up fast. I unhooked it and dropped the line again. Second fish within 3 minutes. Another red. This one closer to 20 inches. By the time I'd landed the 4th fish, I'd been fishing for less than 20 minutes. The commercial block 50 feet away still hadn't produced a single strike. Carl had been watching from a bench. He walked over and nodded. Said it works because fish don't just hunt by sight. They hunt by chemical signature. And certain combinations trigger a feeding response faster than others. The sugar dissolves quickly and creates a sweet scent trail that moves with the current. The salt helps it sink and disperse at different depths. And the jello, specifically the strawberry, hits a frequency in the water that mimics amino acids released by wounded baitfish. It's not about the flavor. It's about the scent molecule structure and how it travels through salt water. He said his father figured this out by accident during the Depression. They couldn't afford bait some days, so they'd try anything. Leftover kitchen scraps, rotting fruit, old preserves. One day his mother had thrown out a box of strawberry gelatin that had gone hard. His father mixed it with salt and tossed it off the dock as a joke. The water lit up. They caught enough fish that evening to feed the family for 3 days. After that, they made it a regular practice, kept it quiet, didn't tell other fishermen because bait was competitive back then. If you had an edge, you protected it. Carl said he'd been using it his entire life and had never seen it fail in warm salt water. I kept fishing. By the 40-minute mark, I'd caught 6 keeper-sized fish. The commercial chum block had attracted nothing but bait fish and 1 small hardhead catfish. The difference wasn't subtle. It was obvious. What's interesting is how the pink cloud behaves underwater. It doesn't just sink straight down. It fans out in layers depending on current and temperature gradients. Warmer water near the surface carries it horizontally. Cooler water below pulls it down. This creates a 3-dimensional scent cone that covers more area than a stationary block ever could. Fish detect it through their lateral line system. That's the sensory organ running along their sides that picks up vibrations and chemical changes in the water. When amino acids and sugars hit that system, it triggers a localized feeding response. They don't even have to be hungry. It's instinctive. The other factor is visibility. That bright pink color stands out against almost any water condition. Even in murky or stained water, fish can see it dropping. It gives them a visual target to investigate, and by the time they get close, the scent has already activated their feeding behavior. I tested it again the next morning. Different dock, different tide, same result. This time I caught 7 fish in just over an hour. Redfish, speckled trout, and 1 black drum that came up from deeper water. All on cut bait, dropped near the pink mixture. A couple of other fishermen noticed and came over to ask what I was using. I told them. One guy laughed and said there was no way strawberry jello could work better than live shrimp. I didn't argue, just kept fishing. He walked away, still using his setup. Didn't catch anything the entire time I was there. That's the thing about old methods. They sound too simple. People assume if it's not complicated or expensive, it can't be effective. But fish don't care about marketing. They respond to chemical signals and feeding triggers that have been consistent for thousands of years. Carl told me he used to make big batches of this mixture and store it in mason jars. He'd take it on shrimp boats during slow days and toss it overboard near the nets. Said it would pull in bait fish, which would pull in larger predators, which made the fishing better overall. Cost him almost nothing and worked in water up to 40 feet deep. I tried a variation using lime jello just to see if the color mattered. It worked, but not as well. The green blended into the water too much and didn't create the same visual contrast. I also tried cherry. That worked better than lime, but still not as strong as strawberry. There's something about that specific scent compound that triggers a more aggressive response. The mixture works best when the water temperature is above 65 degrees. Below that, fish metabolism slows, and they're less responsive to scent-based attractants. But in warm water, especially in the Gulf states during spring through fall, it's extremely consistent. I've used it in Louisiana, Alabama, and the Florida Panhandle. Same results every time. Faster strikes, more fish, lower cost, and you can make it in about 30 seconds. Some people ask if it works in freshwater. I've heard reports of it working for catfish and carp in lakes and rivers, but I haven't tested that myself. My experience is limited to saltwater species, and that's where it's proven reliable. One thing Carl emphasized was not to overdo it. You don't need to dump a whole container at once. A couple of tablespoons every 10 to 15 minutes is enough to keep the scent trail active without oversaturating the area. Too much, and fish get confused or spooked by the unnatural concentration. I also learned that current direction matters. If you're fishing in moving water, you want to throw the mixture up current from where you're casting. Let it drift back toward your bait. That way the fish follow the scent trail right to your hook. In still water, like a canal or lagoon, you can throw it in a circle around your fishing spot. It'll sink and spread naturally, creating a feeding zone that draws fish in from multiple directions. The other advantage is portability. You can pre-mix it at home and carry it in a small plastic bag or jar. It doesn't spoil, doesn't need refrigeration, doesn't attract bugs or smell bad in your truck. It's dry, compact, and lasts indefinitely. Compare that to live bait, which dies, or frozen bait, which thaws and gets messy, or commercial chum, which is heavy and expensive. This does the same job for a fraction of the cost and hassle. I've started keeping a batch in my tackle box at all times. Every time I fish from shore or a dock, I use it. And every time I see results within the first 10 minutes. It's become as essential to my setup as hooks and line. Carl passed away about 8 months after I met him. His daughter told me he'd been fishing that same dock since he was a kid. Taught his children and grandchildren the same methods his father taught him. She said he was glad someone was still paying attention to the old ways. I think about that a lot. How much knowledge gets lost because it doesn't come in a flashy package or get promoted on social media? How many effective techniques disappear because they're too simple to sell? This pink mixture is one of those things. It's been working for nearly a century in the Gulf states, passed down quietly among families and dock regulars, and it still works just as well today as it did in the 1930s. Total result from my testing over 5 trips: 32 fish caught using the pink mixture, 4 fish caught using commercial attractants, same locations, same bait, same conditions. The difference is undeniable. If traditions like this still mean something to you, you might feel at home here. Subscribe if you'd like to see more of these real-world tests. And tell me, did your father or grandfather ever fish this way? I'd genuinely like to hear that story in the comments.